in a
Have you
second.
done that? Got it. Live stream, got it. And hosting, you working on that?
All right.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. My name is Gregory Sneed, and we are glad you are here. Today is the 12th of May in the year 2022, and we've got a great show for you today. Our guest is Butch Grimes, and he'll be joining us shortly and sharing with us some valuable information for the community. But before we get started, a little brief introductions from our crew: Crystal, Stephen, and in absentia, Robin Billups. So, my name is Gregory Sneed, and the name of my company is Lifesaver Financial Services, where I help my clients keep more of the money they make. And I do that through a number of avenues through life insurance products, financial coach, and financial literacy. Because I firmly believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. Another uh, 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 phrase that I took out of my feeling is that I also believe that the way that you treat your money has an impact on how life will treat you. Right? So we'll go through that. So I'll have some information about my company in the chat. And if you'd like to feel better about your money, how many of you feel great about your money? Everybody? Who would like to feel better? Everybody, right? Two hands. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the queen. She's not just the founder, she's the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you, Greg. I love you and Steven. Y'all just boost the girls, ego all over the place. I appreciate that. I'm Krista Mitchell, and I want to welcome you to the community briefing. This platform was created for you by us, but it's ours, and it's to make sure that we as a community have a voice and that we get to hear from those in our community that are um, our leaders and our stakeholders and our this to see the success of what happens in the community from our own perspective. I have my own business, Mitchell Business Solutions. In addition to that, I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. I host a couple of podcasts and the Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, the community briefing, and I am on as a co-host of Conversations on the Patio, where we speak about all things related to retirement, because that's where we want to be one day. With money, as Greg says, can't retire without money. You gotta have money. And so this platform is sponsored and powered by Recycle Black Dollars, this crew here, and the Black Business Association, the BBA. So again, this is our platform. So please feel free to network and don't just take the names. Really connect with the people. Alrighty, so want to welcome you guys. My little tidbit today is vote, 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 vote. June 7th is election day, the primaries, and there is some very important conversations and things that pertain to our community, as we can see that the political world is behaving badly. So your voice counts, your voice matters, your vote matters. Okay, so our other, you guys, Stephen, Robin is not here today. Stephen, you coming in on the tail end, or are you okay? So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Greg. I want to say hello to Edwin. We haven't seen him in a while. Hey, Edwin.
How you doing, Crystal? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. And everyone else, we're always happy to see you guys each week. Okay, Greg, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Crystal. And also to Stephen and our other co host, Robin Billups. Keep her in your prayers as she is going through some health treatments. And so she'll be back 100% joining us live and in color, as they would say. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our guests for today, Mr. Butch Grimes. He's the founder of Who's Gonna Take Care of Me.com, and it's an Alzheimer's dementia outreach. and that is something that's impacting our community. And we had all kinds of names that it was called before. It was Alzheimer's. It was old people disease and senile, but we're learning a lot more now about the disease. Hopefully, some treatments in the future. So he'll be sharing that with us. He specializes in post pre-death, probate, trust, conservatorship, referee of partition. He's going to be talking to us about what that is. Receiverships, divorce. He's a foreclosure specialist. He's a writer, author, speaker, and consultant. He founded Who's Going to Take Care of Me in January of 2014. He also does a We Talk radio network. He has been involved in real estate. Some time ago, he was the California president of the California Association of Real Estate Brokers. He has a degree from the University of Redlands, and he went to St. Bernard's High School. So he's going to share. Did you grow up here in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Yep. And he might share with us what his real first name is. I don't know if it's Butch or not. I know a bunch of Butch, and none of them were that was their born given name. But please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Mr. Butch Grimes.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. I want to start having you travel with me because that was a great introduction.
I'll send you my rates.
No problem. Welcome, everybody. It is truly an honor. When Stephen contacted me and Crystal, and this is it's always a pleasure when I get an opportunity to speak, especially on something I'm very passionate about and love, which is life in Alzheimer's and dementia. But this was a little different because when Stephen and I initially talked, he was saying, hey, we want to know a little bit more about you. And we want you to tell us about things that you did, in your past life. Well, I told Crystal last night that would take about 1 minute because it's not much. But I've had a very wonderful life. And it all started in South Central LA. I grew up in Watts. My grandparents came from Texas. My folks are from East Texas, Marshall and Longview, Texas. And they came out here and they actually stayed in Nickerson Gardens, and they bought their first house for $5,000 on 95th and Calmia near Alameda. And I still have that house today. I've been in real estate, some of you known for over 37 years. Broker, my company is called Team Equity LA Property. But going back, I went to St. Bernard's High School. I played football there, and then I went to the University of Redlands, where I graduated with a poli-sci degree and a minor in business. And I got injured, of course, so many athletes do. But one thing my grandmother always instilled in me when I was coming up, she said, baby, you're a good athlete, but always remember, I want you to get that paper, because that paper can never be taken from you. And that education is something that's so important. And so one of our big football boosters really, really liked me. He always told me, he said, if you don't go pro, he said, you'll always have a job. And he was the senior vice president for a company called Brown-Forman. And most of you probably have never heard of Brown-Forman, but they were the third largest liquor manufacturer in the world. They manufactured Canadian Mist, Early Times, Martell Cognac, and a host of other brands. Well, I did get injured, and I ended up taking him up on that job. And it was a wonderful opportunity because I was able to, really see what corporate America was like. And especially during those days, we just had the Kentucky Derby, and I laugh because we were a major sponsor of the Kentucky Derby because we were in Louisville, not Louisville, but Louisville, Kentucky, and with our wonderful bourbons. And so I would always be at the Kentucky Derby with the company. And I was one of a very few African Americans that worked for the company. But then at a short stint with Brown-Forman, I ended up getting a great job offer with a company, a small company called Hiram Walker, which was the #2 largest manufacturer in the country. And they had a couple little brands, and they actually brought me on because they wanted me to work on specifically on some of those brands. One in particular, Cavassier and Kahlua. So with that, I had an opportunity to travel the world because we own Ballantine Scotch. So I would go back to Scotland, go back to France. I traveled all over the world with that company, and they were very good to me, and to the point where I was their brand person for all of the minority communities or the minority urban markets in the United States. And I did a lot of work and sponsored a lot of events. And I know I met so many people, and some of you probably on this Zoom call because of the sponsorships that I've done for Super Bowls, the Bayou Classics, all of the major conventions around the country. And I had a large budget, which was very unusual during that time because I didn't have to go to anybody to actually give anybody any money. I didn't have to run it up the flagpole to say, I need $5,000. I mean, we had large budgets, especially the liquor industry is a very elite industry because when you had liquor, everybody welcomed you. They loved you. They wanted you to come into their house. They wanted you to come in to their restaurant. So when we walked in, we had an opportunity to really meet a lot of people because we could spread the love. We could say, give everybody in the whole restaurant, give everybody here cocktails on us. And we had those kind of budgets. Those things have changed over the years. Of course, they've tightened up. I always laugh because my brother, I used to fly him around and meet me at ski events in Aspen and Vail when I would do all of the NASCAR and ski races. And he's now a big exec at PepsiCo. And he always would tease me and say, well, big bro, those days are over. All that fun time you had, we don't have that anymore because they really tightened things up. But when I was in the liquor industry, one of the things that I was doing, and this really stemmed because of my background with my grandparents owned property. And when I was very small, I used to go around and do work with my grandfather, my dad, and I would collect rent. At least I would allegedly help them collect rent. And because of that, as I got older, I started actually taking care of the properties for them because, of course, they got older. And that's what kind of thrust me into the real estate scene. But then I went and I started buying properties myself. And I realized that if it was good for my grandparents, I knew it could be good for me. I've never lived in an apartment, I must say. So when I came back from college, my grandmother said, baby, move on home. Let's save some money so you can buy your first house. And I did. Fortunately, I bought a house in the city of Inglewood 30 some odd years ago. I paid $82,000 for it.
Wow.
And today in Morningside Park, and today that house is worth over $1 million. And of course, since then, I bought a large number of properties that I still own. And I've been fortunate enough to pay quite a few of those off. So, you know, and when I speak to the young people, I always try to tell them how important it is to be humble and to not show your wealth, not show what you have, but to do it quietly and just be kind to other people because, unfortunately, when I watch these award shows and I'm out and about and I see these guys with these super fancy cars and these big chains on their neck, and why show it? Why spend all your money doing that in a depreciable item? Why not put it in something that you can go back and look at and say, I own that, I own that, and I own that, rather than getting it snatched off your neck in Beverly Hills because you're at a nice restaurant. And it just really bothers me today when I see those kind of things. But all of that, to be said, came from because of my background. My background I grew up in the hood. I'm a hood rat. I tell everybody, I am truly a hood rat. I came from Watts. We moved east. East was Vermont. That was west for us. So we moved on 65th and Butler, and I'm a product of my community. I mean, I was not one of those young guys that stayed in the house. I was very active. Played football and hung out with the guys at Harvard Park, and we did all the fun stuff that kids did in those days, even though we weren't drive-by shooting and gang banging, because during that time when we fought, we just had good old time fights. We didn't try to beat anybody up and shoot them. Not to say that things like that didn't happen, but it's a new day. And so I am from the hood, and I'm real proud of it. I'm in my neighborhood every day. My building here on Van Ness, I'm in Inglewood, but I still maintain all my different properties. I still go and hang out with some of the people that still live there, even though most of our neighborhoods have changed quite a bit. But I still try to stay connected to the street and see what's going on, because it's also good for me as a landowner to make sure that my properties are protected and people around there know who I am and what I stand for. And so it all works out. But as I said, a lot of that connection came from my family upbringing. Humble. My grandfather was a longshoreman. My grandmother was a housewife. She raised the family. My mother was a dynamo. She was the one that really got me going, because I realize now when I look back, a lot of it came from her. My mother was the first Black president for the Los Angeles Legal Secretaries and Association, and she's the one that knew everybody. And as a young kid, I would see all these different folks, but as I got older, I got to see who they were. And it was just amazing how those influences can really influence your life about what you see and who you're around. One of the things that I always laugh at is because when I think about my mother, I always wanted to go and work at the parks. I wanted to work at the pool, like so many folks did in the summer. My mother wouldn't stand for that. She said, no, you're not working at a pool. You're going to go work for the city attorney's office. I was like, I don't want to work for the city attorney's office. Well, lo and behold, she make a phone call and she said, you're going to go work for the city attorney's office. And then one of the summers I can remember, right before I was getting ready to go to college, and I had to report to camp for football, she said, I got you a job at the mayor's office. I said, the mayor's office? What mayor? She said, Mayor Tucker in Compton, Tucker Senior. She said, I want you to go work. I called him up and told him, Tuck, I want Butch to come and work for you for the summer because he needs to learn and understand how politics works. And so I remember the first day I showed up, and Mayor Tucker was so nice, and Maxey Fowler and Floyd James and all of those guys. They said, welcome to the city of Compton. And he brought me in his office and he said, see that desk over there? He said, that's your desk. He said, I want you to sit there during the summer and you're going to be here with me. And I'm going to teach you a couple of things, young man. And I think about those experiences and I laugh and I go, wow, what a great experience for a young man at that age to have those influences around me to learn different things, especially in politics. So from there, after I got out of college and so on, and I was in the liquor industry, I was buying property, and I decided to when I wanted to always go into business for myself, but I was always buying property at the time when I was with the corporation. And I then one day just said, I'm going to jump in full force. And I went to sell real estate. I started with a company called Prudential California Realty. They were on Jefferson. I never forgot it because it was a great experience to tell me where I came from. I never forgot. I remember my first week, they sent me to a little training in Beverly Hills. And when I got back from that training, my manager, she said, well, did you decide where you're going to really work? And I said, yeah, I think I want to work Beverly Hills. And she said, oh, no, you can't work Beverly Hills, because she named off about 5 other agents. She said, oh, no, they already have that locked up. I never forgot that, locked up. And I said, okay, well, what about Culver City, right in this area? She said, oh, no, you don't want to work Culver City, because she named about 4 or 5 agents who didn't look like me. Oh, no, they have that. This is their area. And I was young and still new in the industry, and I didn't understand their area. And so she said, well, you know what? I have an idea. Why don't you go back to where you live and work that area? And I said, I didn't really want to do that, but okay. So when I did, and I went back to the area where I live, of course, that was South Central. And I started doing real estate. But what was so funny is then I started picking up business in South Central. And I went back to her and I said, at that time they were running big ads in the LA Times and all the major newspapers for their properties. And I said, hey, I want to put my listings in South LA. I'd like for you guys to advertise them and put them in those papers with the rest of your business. And she said, oh, no, I'm sorry. We don't really support that area. And I said, really? You told me to go back there, and now here I am. And she said, I'm sorry, Butch, we don't really do anything past La Cienega. And I tell you that story because that was a long time ago, 30-some years ago. And I laugh because now every one of those companies that claim they didn't go past La Cienega are all in our community, every one of them. And the funnier thing than that is that as years went by and my business started growing, and I think at that time I had about 35 real estate agents working for my company. And it was amazing because all of those folks that worked on the other side of that, on the other side of the 405 or Culver City or West LA, guess who they were calling now? They were calling me, the one that they told to go back to where I live, because I couldn't, that was already controlled. So I've always kind of been the renegade to say, if everybody goes left, I usually like to go right. I've always done that. I've always been unique, meaning YOUNIQUE. I've always liked to try things differently. So here we are 37 years later, and I have to be honest, I just got rid of all my real estate agents 3 months ago. I just let everybody go because it's time for me. I'm ready to slow it down. I'm ready to enjoy fishing and boating and golf. And I just don't want to manage any people anymore. I paid off my building here in Inglewood. And I'm really starting to slow my life down even more. But throughout that time, when I reflect and when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, I think the biggest influence on my life has been the mentors that I've had. It's not the Michael Jordans, it's not an athlete, it's not an entertainer. The influencers and the mentors that I've had have been my grandparents and my grandfather and my mother and my aunt and my brother, who's younger than me, but he and I are super, super, super tight. And that means a lot, especially as I evolve into some of the other things I'm going to talk about quickly. But I had another influencer, actually two in my life, that really have been with me for a long, long time. And I know they're still with me today. It was my godfather, Elbert Hudson, who was the president and CEO of Broadway Federal Bank. And for 23 years, we met every Friday, unless we were sick or unless I was traveling. We met every Friday at Harold and Bell's in the back. Most people never knew we were back there because we would always sit at the back under the exit where nobody would even see us. But that was our seat. Everybody knew that. But just being with Al for all those years and telling me all those great stories about the Tuskegee Airmen, about the Civil Rights Movement, and just being a businessman, because I learned so much from him. Quite conservative in some respects, but at the same time with my own twist. The other person is my sister, Andrea Van Leesten, who's the one that really directed me and really pushed me to understand you got to have a niche. And she's the one that really pushed me into the estates and trust area of real estate, because the real estate industry and real estate professionals tend to be very gypsy. They tend to go wherever the flow is at that moment. Today is short sales. Everybody's going after short sales. Tomorrow is REOs. Everybody wants to go after REOs. Soon as the market changes, everybody makes the shift. The difference in my 37 years is I've always stayed the path and focus on one niche. Because as they say, the niches are in the riches. And so that's really helped me in my game. And to build the foundation that I have today is because I did stay the path and I tended to not waver like most. And I've had some wonderful influences in addition to those. My girlfriend, Dr. Cheryl Rue, who's the now the president of the Lynx, Beverly Hills Lynx. And she was the president of the Association of Black Women Physicians. And my other sister, Wanda Smith, who was with One United Bank. All of these people have been advisors. They've given me a lot of direction. They've given me a lot of support. And, and I have a host of friends who are very loyal to me and I'm very loyal to them. But, as time went on and all those great times and the things that I've had happen to me, all of a sudden, somebody who's near and dear in my life is my mother. Started acting kind of squeamish, strange, something I'd never seen before. And lo and behold, never dealing with it because we didn't have it in our family, she came down with dementia, with Alzheimer's. And I have to admit, I was in denial for a long time, primarily because I'd never seen it. I didn't know what those symptoms look like. Well, at the same time, my brother is the one that actually recognized it. My brother is in Texas, and he recognized it because of the conversations he was having with my mother over the phone. And then when he brought it to my attention, I said, let me take a look at this a little more. And I every day, she would start saying really strange things like, you know, I saw somebody in my car last night, but your car's in the garage. Yeah, but somebody was sitting in it and I saw him. And I said, So then my aunt would tell me, she would call me at like 3 in the morning and say, Butch, please come over. Your mom is standing on the corner. Just standing out there. It's 3 in the morning. And I realized, Houston, we got a problem. So of course, that's when I really started going into the internet and I started asking people and reading about it. And I realized that I needed to become a little closer to my mother, meaning physically, because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I learned by fire. I learned the hard way. I had to be there and see it in person. And I mean, some of the things that I could describe, you would probably never believe, but they happen. And they happen true to form. And so because of that, as I went through it with my mother, I realized even more that I needed to spread the word and be that community ambassador to try to get the information out, because I realized that African Americans and Latinos are 3 times more likely to get dementia. But we also are the last on the list to get funding and also get the education. And there's really nobody, you know, there are people out here that are really trying to make an attempt to get the information out there. And there's some large organizations, and I don't even have to name them, that, you know, they put up the flags and they tell, you know, they call it out, but we still are not getting the support from those groups in our community. So with that, that's why I started an organization on behalf of my mother called Who's Gonna Take Care of Me? Because one day I was sitting up and I was in the throes of it, dealing with my mother. And I was thinking to myself, damn, who's gonna take care of me? And I realized how important it was for me to put that message out there. And I think how it really resonated even more is because one day, so as time went on, I realized I could not continue to take care of my mother by myself. I tried for many months. And if you've not slept in that 24-hour period and you're up and you're trying to function, it's very, very, very difficult. And I dealt with that for a long time. But after that, I did put my mother in a facility. I had said I would never do it, but it was something that I couldn't help because I needed to be able to take care of her. And at that point, it was on and cracking because one, managing a facility is difficult by itself. People think they put their loved ones there and they're going to be taken care of. They're not, because the facility is only as good as you make them. You have to make sure you're there to manage them. And I would see my mother at all odd hours, and I would go there at 2 in the morning. And they'd say, Mr. Grimes, what are you here? It's 2 in the morning. I said, why are you here? I said, don't worry about me. I'm just going to go over here with my laptop and do some work. You just do what you do. Because I always wanted to see, and I wanted to make sure that they understood that somebody's always watching them. And, you know, unfortunately, as time went on, I was on 24/7. And I was always, whenever that phone rang, it was, you know, your heart would just drop because it was always something. Your mother fell out of the bed. You know, people walking around with the facilities with big old blotches on their face or bruises and so on. So it was always something going on. And I realized then that I then had to bring my mother back home. And since then, of course, My mother has declined substantially because of the disease. She started out walking, talking. She was doing pretty well. And then one day, the brain said, stop walking. And she stopped walking. Then the next day, the brain said, stop chewing. And she stopped chewing and she stopped swallowing. And when we thought we were at the last bit, at the very end, I was in emergency with my mom, and this one doctor said, I think there's one last thing we can try. And he was telling me about his experience as a director in a facility. He said, there's a thing called syringe feed. He said, where your mom can actually, like an insurer, but we would just take and put it right near her throat and drop it. And it would go down and it would keep her fed. It would give her some nutrients. And we tried it, and here we are today, almost 8 years later. And my mother looks great. She does not walk, she does not talk, but she is still here with me. So, you know, Alzheimer's is a very deadly thing, and it's growing at a rapid rate. And I just don't know how to tell everybody. We have to become conscious of our day-to-day health, and we also have to pay more attention to the people around us. When you see something strange, pay attention. People get in denial. We have to have family meetings. You need to know what your family is doing financially. Yeah, I don't want to talk to mom. I don't want to talk to dad about their personal business. Well, you should, because that personal business is important, because you need to have that healthcare directive on them. You need to make sure that you have a power of attorney if something goes on, where you can make sure you can continue to maintain their wealth and keep their household going and keep them going. You don't want to wait till the last minute and then all of a sudden find out, uh-oh, something's wrong. I mean, I could go on for the longest, but I'm going to stop right there. And I don't want to get into the statistics of 6.5 million people have dementia. But I do want to say 2/3 of the people with dementia are women. African-American women are afflicted more than anyone else. And that's the reason why I focus so much on men, because, you know, we're the strong ones in the family. We're the ones that are taking care of our loved ones. We're the ones that have to show strength. But one thing I found out when I had men support groups is that men are very vulnerable, especially when it comes to their wives and their girlfriends and their mothers. And as they say, sometimes the caregiver goes before the cared for. It's because we're not prepared. And I think that's one of my missions, is to try to prepare everybody I can for potentially that day with someone. It may not be your loved one. It may be your uncle. It may be your cousin. And we're starting to see more and more cases of dementia every day, but we're also seeing it in younger people. Actually, I think the youngest person I've heard about is 35. But there's some cases out there that are really scary. So I'm gonna stop right there, because I think the Q&A is most important. And I hope this was, this shedded some light for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Thank you for that. And I think I know I sure did. I'm sure most of us felt the passion that you spoke of. Certainly when you're talking about family, you're talking about mom. You know, my mom had Alzheimer's, and the same thing. I was, you know, battling with my sister because she was in denial about it, and I'm saying, no, something's up. And I'm sure you have some information, but it's important to look at the stages. So there's stages of Alzheimer's, and they're numbered from 0 through 7. We're all in stage 0, forgetting, you know, momentarily forgetting where you put your keys. But Alzheimer's is not forgetting where you put your keys. Is once you see the keys, remembering that they're yours. That's the way.
Or what you're supposed to do with them.
That's right. These aren't mine. These aren't my keys.
Right.
So But when you look at, and there's a couple of resources, and I'm sure you have that as well to share. There's some resources that show you the behaviors of where they are in the stage, and you can look to the next stage to see, okay, this is where they are now, and this is what is coming. So you can see some of those behaviors and track it. I didn't discover that quantitative measurement until my mom was probably in stage 5, about to go into 6. As I said, and 7 is the last stage, the final stage. So, but no, thank you for sharing with that. That was tremendous. For those of you, please put your questions that you have for Mr. Grimes in the chat.
And you know what, Greg? Let me just make this one point. We talk about studies, and I always get the question, well, where did it come from? What happened? What are the studies saying? Well, the problem is a lot of the studies we don't know, because African Americans are not represented in those studies. They're not represented because we don't participate in clinical trials. Why? Because of, distrust, of course, the Tuskegee study, as we know, and research. All the research and the statistics that we normally get are not based on people that look like you and I. It's based on people that don't look like us. So we're only relying on the reaction to drugs and what's going to happen based on studies that aren't even done on us. And that's something very important that we have to recognize. That just think about COVID-19. How many of you were actually part of the COVID-19 study? I don't know anybody. And we have different makeups. Physiologically, we have different makeups. So it is really important that we understand that, there's a major problem there, because we don't really know what's to come or what's going on, because the studies don't even involve us.
And the other thing too is we didn't live as long. So going back 50 years or 100 years, we weren't living. A lot of family members weren't living past their 60s. So they weren't getting it. I mean, there's 2 types of Alzheimer's. There's early onset and then there's late stage. So, the early onset hits at a younger age, a very rapid decline. And then the late stage may not start, seeing things until they're in their mid to late 70s or early 80s. And so it's a longer slope. So we weren't living as long now. And, but this, back then they just called it, senile, an old age disease. So,
in the back room watching TV.
Yeah. So, but thank you for sharing. I saw someone posted the alz.org. That's one. I'll try and find it if I can. But there's another site that's got a little bit more detail on the stages than the alz.org. I'll see if I can find that. But yeah, it's very helpful to do that. Let's take a look here. Do we have some? First off, Crystal, you want to acknowledge some of the folks that have come in the room and joined us, and let me grab some of these questions here to see if there's any questions there.
Sure, my buddy Leo. Hey, Leo, welcome. Glad to have you. And Ardina and Ron Beatty, Betty, your new faces. Welcome, guys. Theo, Alicia. I want to say this while Greg is pulling together the questions. Butch, you just answered a whole lot of questions about you based upon the things that Butch is very prolific on Facebook. And one of the things that I have watched him is his journey with his mother. This man loves his mother, and he has no qualms about letting you know what's going on. But I also can see some of his history. So the day Butch had a Kentucky Derby party. Now that explains why he had a Kentucky Derby. Why also he talks about his liquor on his Facebook, his cooking on Facebook. So now I totally understand good Butch, and I've known Butch through friends. One of my best friends went to school with Butch at St. Bernard's. Several of my Butch friends went to school. So Butch, you explained a lot just in the first 15 minutes. So now I I fully understand, including we both are, we bank at Broadway Federal, which is now City First Bank. That's where I see Butch all the time because we bank at our community bank, our black bank owned bank at one point. Now it's a community bank. Thank you for that explanation. But one of the things that really resonated with me with Butch recently, and I took care of my mother. She had lung cancer, and I took care of her for 7 to 8 years by myself. But when after the pandemic, when he could only see his mom during the pandemic through the window of her room, and he was there all the time, waving to his mom through the window. And then the very first day he was allowed back in, it brought tears to my eyes because I know what that's like. So I just want to commend him on being the son that he is and taking care of his mother. And this is no slight to the men on the call, but generally it's us women that are there in the thralls of things, taking and giving everything that we got. So I want to commend him on what he has done. So with that, Greg, I'll turn that back over to you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. So one of the questions is, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia, and then which one of the two is more harmful?
Well, let me demystify that, because everybody they hear the word Alzheimer's because that's the new term, as you said, Greg. We didn't have a name for it way back when. Where's your grandmother? Oh, she's in the back room watching TV. But now there's a sexy name, Alzheimer's. But Alzheimer's is not the big kahuna. Alzheimer's is just one of the many. Dementia is the umbrella term. And Alzheimer's is one of, you have dementia, and then you have Alzheimer's, and then you have Parkinson's, you have Lewy bodies, vascular dementia. There are a number of others that come under that umbrella. But people ask me all the time, and I'm going to keep this real simple because I think, Greg, you and I just talked about it. What's the difference? Dementia is, I lost my keys. Now, some of you probably think you have dementia every day because you're probably losing something. Alzheimer's, as I mentioned, is I found my keys, but I don't know what the heck to do with these things. I don't know. What do I do? That's Alzheimer's. Is when you lose those cognitive functions and you don't know what to do with them. And they're very clear, because I remember when my mother first, I had to take mama's keys, and I've written an article on this because you thought all hell broke loose in our household because I had to take her keys. And when you take their keys, oh my God, you better be prepared because it's going to be a fight. And my mother would always say, I don't care if you take my keys, I'll just go buy another car. Well, I'll take those keys too. But it's just a way of, you got to do it. And the problem is a lot of folks are passive aggressive and they don't want to do that. So they will allow them to keep driving. And this is the reason why it's so important, where you got to have somebody in the family that's going to step up, because it's about their health and safety. So just in the short of it, when you lose that idea of what do I use these things for? That's Alzheimer's. But dementia is the umbrella. So everybody knows that.
Dementia is the result of, the brain not functioning as good as it was, and especially when it comes to memory. And there's different things, as Butch said, that can cause to that, and one of them is Alzheimer's. But it can be, the brain is a muscle, and if you're not exercising that muscle throughout your life, then you start to lose capacity. You start to get thought atrophy, if you will. So, it's good to do, puzzles and things to keep your mind, stimulated. That's a topic right there, Crystal, is, brain stimulation, and we're certainly getting into
True
that.
that.
Right. How often, when I mean, I have to take exams every 2 years to renew my license, so I'm constantly trying to learn. But when's the last time a lot of people took an exam, had to study for an exam and then take a so that keeps your brain activated. So that's good. It also Alzheimer's takes it to just beyond forgetfulness. It's the brain is no longer able to, it's plaque that's forming in the brain, and it
Right.
doesn't allow the brain cells to accumulate. After my mother passed, and we were clearing out the house, we were gonna rent out the house in New York, and for the longest we couldn't find the cable remote in the living room. All right, can't find the cable remote. So now I clearing stuff up. I'm in the bathroom upstairs, underneath the sink, under some towels, wrapped in a hot water bottle, was the cable remote. And I'm thinking, what had to be going through her mind to say, you know what? This is a good place to put the cable remote. Okay, it's going to be nice and safe. And I mean, what was the process like? Okay, now I forgot where to put. I'm going to put it right here so it's nice and safe. That was part of my language. Blew my mind.
And and the funny thing about that, Greg, and it's really not that complicated. This is why I tell families when they come in to the office is that these are classic examples that happen to everyone. You would think they would deviate, but the cable, that remote control is a classic for everyone. I mean, we're talking about Alzheimer's. What are these buttons for? So I had to actually take duct tape and put them around my mother's remote control and only turn on the on and off buttons so she could at least have something in the house. And she eventually was able to take care of that, take it off and get it going too. So,
well, I mean, people need those ideas. So let me get to some of these questions. So what are some of the things your organization provides in terms of resources, information, support groups, etc.? And what is your website? You want to promote your website so they can go there. And I'm sure there's some great information. How can they reach you? So we'll leave you there and answer that one.
So we're 501c3, who's going to take care of me.org. And I also opened up a community resource center in Inglewood. It's the only one in LA, in the Inglewood area, LA County, believe it or not. It's really surprising. Early on, I really tried to bring some of the other organizations in to assist us, but we were very unsuccessful because they were having their own battles. Even though a lot of people support them, the problem is that money that goes in does not come back. And so I wanted to make sure anything that came in here, we put it back directly in our community. And so we have a Gloria Grimes Resource Center for Alzheimer's and dementia at 8467 South Van Ness. Our website is www.who's, not who is, I'm from the hood, who's, WHOS, Gonna, GONNA, take care of me. Also, every Christmas, we do a program called Elves for Alzheimer's. And we basically choose 3 facilities that we go and donate goods. And this program started, before the pandemic years ago, where we realized there was a deficiency there. There are a number of people that put their loved ones in a facility and they pay them rent, but that's it. They don't take them anything. And I started this program primarily because I was seeing it every day when I would see my mom. And we started out, all of our donations comes from friends, family, Facebook friends, and so on. And right before the pandemic, we had given out over 25,000 Depends goods. We actually had to have a U-Haul truck to take those items to those 3 facilities. So we supply them not only that one time during Christmas, but also throughout the year. The other thing I do want to mention, and we do have support groups here in my facility, but one of the other pieces that I really want to talk to you guys about is that I have a newspaper, and it's called the Alzheimer's Digest. And actually it's going to print today for our 6th edition. And folks told me I was crazy when I brought the idea up. And they said, why would you start a newspaper, Butch? Everything is digital. Why would you do that? Nobody reads newspapers. But that's not true, because seniors read newspapers. Seniors love to have their coffee and their tea and a newspaper in front of them. And of course, as I told you, I've always been the one that if everybody goes left, I've gone right. And I went right with the newspaper, and it was the right call, because right before the pandemic, we had a distribution. We went in 4 months from 3,000 distribution to 10,000 distribution in 4 months. And it's been a big, big hit. And we're just starting to kick it back off. Our edition is in print right now. And we're going to start out a little small. We're going to do 10,000 for this first run, but we anticipate in the next 3 to 4 months, we will be up to about 25,000 in circulation. And it's a resource guide. It's got articles. We have Andrea Van Leesten does an article about states trust and so on. Dr. Cheryl Rue has articles on health. We have articles from folks in the community, caregivers, because our focus is really to try to educate more people about caregiving, which is tough. And we have a new podcast that's coming out called The Journey. You'll be hearing about that within the next couple of weeks. And we're in the community.
Awesome.
We're not in Beverly Hills. We're in the community.
Which, as I said, you're awesome. There is a couple questions and we're going to round up in a few minutes. But Richard Palais wants to know, how can our Black doctors take the project to create studies in local communities and then share the findings around places where we meet, churches, clubs, and so forth and so on? I agree. We have to take care of our own, and if there's no studies for us, then maybe we need to engage our Black professional and medical professionals and focus in on our people.
Well, one of the things I would just say real quick is that, we got to stop working on our own little islands. I mean, as I reached out to so many folks to try to do something together, everybody's so concerned about getting their little bits of donations and monies for their program. We all need to just come together. We have to collectively come together, and we got to dispel the myth of distrust about doing a clinical trial or educational programs. And that's the reason why I've stepped up my efforts even more to get more in the community and be exposed. And that's why I'm very honored and excited to be here today with you guys.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm about my community. I'm about us working together. So however I can help, I am there. I do think, as a person that did caregiving myself, I think that's a topic that needs to be discussed and discussed and discussed. And those of us that are in that position, you need to reach out to those of us that have been there, because there's some things that we've gone through that we understand. And first and foremost, you must take care of yourself first. I understand how much you care about your loved ones, but if you don't take care of yourself, which is absolutely right, you're going to be the next one. That is truly why my mother was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer, because she took care of my grandmother, my brother, and my uncle, and she was the next casualty right behind their deaths. So take care of yourself, do things for yourself, and there's one question, and we're going to wrap it up, but there was one question on how do you get your families you got to get mean with your family, because if you don't, they will step over you. If you give it them 1 inch, They will take a mile and you will be the only one doing it. So you need to be forceful about getting them there. Threaten if you have to. Stephen?
First of all, I'd like to thank Charles Butch Rhyme, for coming on the call today. It's been an honor to have you here and sharing your passion and your path. I'm going to have Renee Tabor make an announcement, and then I'd like to talk about next week's guest. Renee?
Hi, sorry to just come in so late, but I was on the phone talking to my brother, who is the past director of the National Institute of Health in charge of minority disparities in health. And he just retired from there. I called him while we were here. He has some information. My computer is faulty now, but I'd like to send it to the briefing and maybe they can get it out. But there are, what did you say? There are no, I can't think of the word. I hope I don't have Alzheimer's. Okay.
You're in the dementia phase like the rest of us.
There are clinical trials, and he sent me one. And there's places where Black people can sign up for clinical trials at the National Institute of Health. He said, and my father was a Tuskegee Airman, and he was in that study too, and got syphilis. It's just, so, hey, we know where you're coming from here. So from way back. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know, this is so much, I'm not going to be able to get it all in here.
Well,
But,
Renee, please
yes.
send it to communitybriefing@gmail.com and we'll share it.
Okay.
Butch Grimes is the epitome of our guests. Next week, we have an outstanding guest, Carl Anderson, who will talk about CFO for hire, Chief Financial Officer for hire. Also in June, if you mark your calendar, the 12th, we have Leonardo from the Brotherhood Crusade will be joining us. In between, we have another guest speaker. Again, Butch Grimes, thank you. Thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Make sure you guys take a copy of the chat if you can. There's some valuable information in there. Go to Butch's website. He can help you out. And I'll try to make sure that I take the chat information and put it in the comments on our YouTube channel. So you'll have that information there. So important, guys. Butch, thank you so much, because these are the conversations that we have to have in our community about our families and our health and ourselves. So it's really important, even as business owners. So thank you very much. Ardina, reach out to Butch, because I know you have many more questions. So reach out to Butch, and anyone else that's caring for a loved one that are going through some health challenges, please reach out to Butch and help. Let's help Butch, because we all will be or can be or have been in this seat before. So this is not his journey. This is our journey. So we want to thank you guys so much. I will have the show up on YouTube probably by this weekend. So check it out and share it. This is one of those that I need you guys to share it. I will actually personally send it to each one of you in an email. Please share it with your loved ones, your siblings, because if you're in this place, you need to get them on board right away. If not, you will be the only one taking care of that loved one. And it's hard. So thank you guys so much. Butch, awesome, my friend. Awesome.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And for those of you, Gwen, welcome. Leo, we'll see you. You'll be back, though, right before the 12th, though, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
I miss you guys. Good to see everyone.
You
and
as well.
Butch, we'll have to have you come back with Andrea and do a show.
Yeah.
I spoke to her yesterday. I spoke to her yesterday. She had to dash to get a call, but we were talking about a mutual friend of ours who had passed a couple months ago. So yeah, you have to come back, man, and talk about the issues that you guys share in common with the probate and taking care of business on that side. So
well, it's just called wealth. We gotta start keep maintaining our wealth in our community, and things like this is what hurts us a lot.
Yep.
Thank you. And Renee, make sure you send that stuff to me. Leo wants to know, Butch, is Rocky and Angela Grimes related to you?
I don't know.
All righty. Did they go to a Catholic school?
Nah,
You know, we all look alike, so.
That's right. That's right. No, I went to elementary school with them in Mar Vista. So
Okay. Now you know that was a little west for us, man.
well, we lived in South LA, but we were bused over there. So
I hear you.
And someone said something about clinical trials in addition to Butch. And Robin Billups said this last week, and I did this with my mom. The best thing that you can do for yourself and a family member that has been diagnosed with some illness is get them in a clinical trial. They will watch and check everything. You get 24-hour care because they're writing papers on it. So they will put all of their attention to making sure they address whatever concerns you have. Clinical trials. My mom, she has small cell lung cancer, which it has a year. Usually in about a year, the patient is gone. My mom lived for 6 additional years because of a clinical trial. So just know that. Yes, Ardina, before we pull off?
Yes, I just wanted to get that address. Crystal, I think Butch gave it to us on Van Ness, somewhere on Van Ness. Sure.
8467 South Van Ness. We're on 84th and Van Ness.
Okay, great, because you're close.
We gave out his web address. So if you go there, all that information is there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Miss Gwen.
Hey there, just a quick question on the chat. I'm actually in my office on my phone because I'm actually working on my computer.
Okay.
So I can't save the chat.
I'll save it for you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make sure you guys get the chat.
Okay,
and
great.
Also,
I want to get it out to our organization, a couple of organizations that I sit on the board of. So thank you.
Okay, and Gwen, I'll send you the show as well because the women in your population are taking care of family members and loved ones.
Yes.
And so I'll get that over to you. So if you can get that to them, that would be appreciative.
That would be excellent. Appreciate it. Great show. Good information.
Thank you. All righty, guys.
I'll also put it in the councilman's newsletter here for District 1 in Inglewood. So I'm gonna, this is such important information that we do need to get it out to the broader community. So I will be able to.
Maybe Butch can come over to the Black Women's Network and have that conversation at one of you guys' events.
Yes, absolutely. Could you send me Butch's contact information? We actually have a meeting coming up this Saturday, and it is our it's a meeting for our membership, and this would really be an excellent topic if he were available for to give us 15 minutes or so. So if you could share his contact information, I'll do a reach out.
Okay, Butch, good with that?
This Saturday?
Well,
that may be a little soon. But I have actually spoken at the Black Women's Network.
Okay.
All right, I'll just exchange. You guys exchange.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. We're gonna sign off, and we will see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Same back time, same back channel. And have a great weekend. Be safe and take care.
I'll come back now here.
Peace.
Come back. Theodora?
Richard Palais, I want to talk to you.
Okay. Richard Palais, and Renee wants to talk to you.
Okay. And Leo, I want to talk to you. Renee, I want to talk to you. Same black time, same black channel. Thank you.
I love it.
Chat.
Sure will.
All right, guys. See you guys next week.